Event freelancers, welcome to your new community, connecting you to your next project. Get connected. Sign up now. It's free.
Hello, welcome to this Connektd Session. My name is Steve Squires. I'm an event consultant, producer and project director based in London and founder of Connektd, your freelance community. Connektd is a community platform building a community of freelancers and agencies in events, exhibitions and brand experience. We allow companies and agencies around the world to build unique communities of freelancers in the locations where they need them, and we give freelancers the opportunity to raise their profile to a global client base. Given the challenges that our industry is facing right now, and with our eye on the future, we believe there's never been a more important time in which to realise just how connected and valuable our global network is. This is one of a number of sessions that we're making available. For access to the others, you can find them on our social channels, our Connektd social channels. So there's been much lobbying and campaigning on behalf of the events industry during the pandemic. And one group that's been working to bring all this work together under one campaign has been One Industry, One Voice. The One Industry, One Voice campaign is all about creating one voice for a clear definition and representation of our industry to leverage the power and unity and to ensure our collective messages be heard and acted upon. The Campaign Action Group has seen an unprecedented coming together of a large and diverse representation of the industry to work together to fight for our future. Today, we're going to be talking to Rick Stainton, founder of One Industry, One Voice campaign. Hi, Rick, and thanks so much for joining us today. So tell us in your own words about One Industry, One Voice. What is it?
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate the opportunity. I know that the freelance community is a very important part of our industry and the community. And where would we be without them? So One Industry, One Voice effectively was set up in July, August, when I saw a lot of disparate parts, individual sectors of the industry doing very credible campaigns, almost entirely asking the government for financial support and lobbying accordingly. Some, more effectively and representative than others, it's fair to say, but all with the right intention and their hearts in the right place. But it was very clear from feedback that we got from the government and the press, and I think quite a lot of the community around the industry, that they were wondering why all these different campaigns weren't working together. They were having a lot of conflicting data and conflicting messaging, and also claiming, perhaps without meaning to come across perhaps as not fully representing the industry, but they certainly didn't have the necessary mandate, and therefore the data and the messaging didn't necessarily represent what the whole industry needed to be said. And again, that's no criticism, that's just an observation which has been decades old as a legacy of our industry being in fractions and silos. So I thought, when you look at the people like the UK hospitality and UK sport and other key industry sectors, they have a very strong power of unity of when they communicate, whether it's with the national press or the consumers or their customers or government, for whatever message it needs to be. So I felt that maybe now was the time, and maybe use this pandemic as a good positive time. Perhaps hopefully we'll get on to maybe a long-term legacy of actually working as one and leveraging that amazing power that we have with a positive delivery of amazing experiences, and getting getting a message across together. So I went to a MASH Media organised event where there was a lot of associations and particularly sort of exhibition representatives and venues, and even they perhaps weren't clear on what they should do or how they should approach it. And there were already different government lobbying sort of areas of campaigns within them doing different things. So I proposed to as many people as I knew in the industry, my peers, competitors, agency heads, venues, owners, hotel groups, associations within the sort of business event sector, and then realized that obviously One Industry, One Voice has to be what it says on the tin. So I reached out to the wedding sector, I reached out to the outdoor event sector, the sports sector, the music sector, the theatre sector, congresses, exhibitions, as well as perhaps what Smile's best known for is the business and experiential side, and just put forward an idea that if One Industry, One Voice wanted to do something as a coalition, would you want to be part of it and put perhaps together a campaign that had a balance to the more government lobbying and sector specific campaigns, so that it was perhaps fully representative and had the unique mandate of all the industry buying into it and supporting it, and the messages were sort of across that board representative. So I'm happy to say that sort of 99.9% said yes, at last, good idea, good luck. And so, I thought, well, I've got to do something with this pandemic that has a positive impact from probably a personal perspective, a sort of sector industry perspective. And I may or may not be the right person to do it, but I thought I'd take it on and get as many people to help as possible. This is not a Rick Stainton Smile show, so I'm almost immediately, when it started getting some traction, asked Simon Hughes, a good industry friend who's well respected across many different areas from the BVP, who's a lot of experience in campaigns and cross-industry engagement, and obviously BVP has lots of the main associations as part of it. I asked him to lead it, which he gratefully did and has, and we've sort of led it together, him in the foreground, me in the background perhaps, to where we've collated the weddings industry and the outdoors and the business events and the music and the sport and the festivals and the charity sector, so sort of 7-8 main sectors, and asked them to come together as a coalition. And that's what One Industry, One Voice is, as a coalition, supporting all their campaigns, but sharing data, sharing content, sharing ideas, whether it's been lobbying government, whether it's been collating business insurance ideas, rapid testing and other biosecurity measures, listening to each other on who we're engaging with at BEIS or the DCMS or the Treasury, which MPs, which regional mayors, helping align also on sort of the timing of things, supporting each other across social media when individual campaigns are coming up, and just trying to get a little bit more of a representation of power of the industry and its unity, and that can only be a positive thing. So that's the coalition of One Industry, One Voice. And obviously the likes of Martin Fullard from Mash Media, in fact, all the industry press, to be fair, all the main publications have helped and supported it in a non-partisan way, which is fantastic. So we've got hundreds and hundreds of businesses from all those different sectors, and all the main associations from all those different sectors, and leading charities that, funnily enough, have sort of feet in the corporate camp, because obviously they have corporate events that they do. They have mass participation, sporting and theatrical and cultural events that they do. So they're a big sector as well that rely heavily on events for funding and awareness campaigns to support the vulnerable in society, which is obviously pretty symbolic right now that they're needed to engage with their audiences. And we pulled that coalition together to effectively help each other with our campaigns and data and content, and try and get this great industry back up and running. So that's pretty much why I did it. That's how I did it, was just pestering as many people on calls morning, noon and night for all through August and September, and effectively saying, if we did this, what would you want the key messages to be? And the key messages effectively came out on 3 fronts, which was education, because they still didn't feel that the national press, the government and the general public really knew what the events industry was, what we're about, the power of us, the way we touch millions of people's lives every day in such a positive way. So the education thing was quite key. Give them examples of inspiring content. So we've collated a lot of that, which we'll get onto. And then just reassure them that we're experts, reassure them of our position in the world stage, of how we're the best in the world at doing events, safety, logistics, audiences that are organized, crowd management. It's in our DNA. It's what we do. We're problem solvers. And they need to be reassured by that, so we can deliver safely under any sort of guidelines that are obviously now published, but they weren't necessarily back then, with the government in conjunction with several associations that helped put them together. So education, inspiration and reassurance was the messages. And so from that came the campaign, which we'll be launching on the 7th of December, next Monday, under the banner of We Create Experiences, which we can get onto obviously later on. But again, even just the choice of those three words, we collectively create, we're a creative industry, experiences which cover all those aforementioned sectors, weddings or congresses or business events or experiential, sporting or theatrical or music. They're experiences we cherish, whether with our colleagues, our family or our friends. So I thought that was then all encompassing, and no one would go, well, that's not what I'm involved in.
So you say, I mean, you've got hundreds of organisations involved. What was the initial response of people? Did everyone just immediately say, yes, this is a great idea, let's do it? Or was there some initial hesitation, or how did that work?
I'll be honest, no, it was I say 99.9%. I'm trying to think of maybe one or two people that questioned the timing, and I didn't even have a timing yet. I just wanted to get something going. So, you know, obviously if we're talking about August, September, we were sort of coming to the end of the summer, not so great position with the R number and the cases. It was not looking like events were going to happen in the near future, and perhaps that was where the We Create Experiences campaign that people wanted to happen wasn't right timing wise. So we were just putting that aside and just getting the support. We were putting a PR fund together through a Just Giving page, which we had a target of 30,000. We're now at well over 55, I think, thousand. I think the Just Giving page says 46 at the moment, but other people have contributed almost 10,000 separately. So we were galvanizing that to get some firepower for a campaign that would, when the timing was right, we would activate. So no, the essence and the mandate, unique mandate and mantra behind One Industry, One Voice is a coalition of cross-representation of all the different types of people and industries, from freelancers to venues to hotels to exhibition organisers to brand experience agencies to event companies to logistics to haulage to catering to set designers to florists to wedding organisers. I could go on. They all got it. There was one or two, I'm talking like out of hundreds, a handful, who just said, I'm not sure the timing is right for a campaign, but I'm up for what you're doing. Let's discuss. 99.9% said up for it. And again, hundreds and hundreds of organisations and individuals and freelancers have contributed to the PR fund, which is only one of many ways which they could support, which I made very clear from the start. Lots of businesses were in no position to even give a penny. Lots of bigger organisations had a complete stop on any marketing or anything like that. Obviously, you know, smaller businesses and freelancers were fighting to pay their rents, their mortgages, their bills. So, you know, contributing to campaign was not their remit. But just to get support and that they would sort of follow it, maybe share it when we activated, you know, content and across social media was as much as I could hope for. So yeah, it was pretty overwhelming, very humbling. And I've set myself up to fail from the start. And I was very grateful with the spirit of collective support and understanding. And not just that, this isn't Rick Stainton, this is Simon and then Martin, and then there's 30, 50 people actively daily working through action task force, action groups, subgroups on a variety of different elements to this, which, you know, it's been really lovely. And I've obviously 99% of the people involved I've not even met physically, which is weird, even though I've spoken to them daily for 4 months.
Yeah, that is quite weird.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, it is a huge achievement though. And I think the other huge achievement is that, as well as all of these different organisations out there, there were 3 different campaigns as well, which have all come together under One Industry, One Voice as well, which is another huge achievement.
Yeah, it's actually 7. There was 3. Yeah, it was three initially. So We Create Experiences was the first one, which is obviously was the last one to activate. We don't approach We Make Events and Let the Music Play, I think, were the first 2. And then we got What About Weddings and Save Nightlife and Save Live Comedy. That made it 6. And then recently, a couple of weeks ago, Project Recovery, which is the ESSA AEOs and AEVs under the EIA. There was Project Confidence, now it's Project Recovery. They've come on board. So it's pretty nice representation of 7, which is just fantastic. So we just had a task force meeting earlier, and all of those different associations that support that, as well as the campaign representatives, are discussing, you know, the current content data, the big survey that we just put out, One Industry, One Voice, which I'll get to shortly, some interesting stats from that. So yeah, it's 7 now, which is brilliant. And again, I didn't really expect any of this. So it's sort of self-fulfilling, and the momentum's been taken away from me with lots of other people proactively doing it, which is just fantastic.
Absolutely. And how does that work then? The collaboration, you share data and you share information and resources and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people are targeting, still bizarrely business events, particularly and exhibitions, as into DCMS, which is madness in a way, but that's just historical. Whereas obviously cultural, sporting, theatre and music and so on are probably rightfully in DCMS. So we're still targeting them, whereas Bays, the business department, weddings are represented by them. So they've had areas in there, we've had areas in there. We want to across both. They don't talk to each other as departments, obviously, because they're in government, and that would be sensible. Frankly, it was a case of sharing insights of how to approach, who to approach, but most importantly, it was coming across as a unified industry that was asking government for engagement with the right data. And that wasn't, no one even knew the value of the events industry. All sorts of numbers were banded around 30, 50, 70. So we asked all those different areas to actually get to a finite number from their individual sectors they were confident with from their own resources, and we collated them into a total of 84, which BVP has ratified, I should say, with research department. And then from that came these sort of employment numbers. And again, we went back to the sectors and asked them, and we came up with 1.56, which is not 100% accurate, because obviously that was 1.56. It's probably a lot less now, and will be more if we don't kickstart this recovery. But to get the different sectors for their own individual areas that had more control over their own numbers and collate them with us was an achievement itself. And now all those campaigns, including the one to come up with Create Experiences, can use those numbers credibly to demonstrate the breadth of our impact across the economy, jobs, exports, younger employment, the range of jobs across the different regions as well, for any output into sort of any campaigns. So we're all seeing it from the same hymn sheet, and I guess also we're also identifying key other areas of focus. So business insurance is a big issue for the outdoor event sector, the music sector, sports sector, and so on, which doesn't cover COVID. So where's the commitment for big budget holders and so on that area to actually commit when now COVID is not covered, and they're very concerned about that. So that's something that the subgroups are very much collating information and support from across government, treasury, and the insurance industry. Collating all the biosecurity protocols around the world and what's been done. The Global Exhibition Industry Association, UV, has helped us with that, as well as in conjunction with the AEO in the UK, and all the other sectors. EIF have been very proactive in it, and learning about what other countries have done, what we could do in the UK, what rapid testing opportunities, with none of which are yet sort of approved officially for the use of events. Air filtration systems, misting, apps, simplistically down to sort of the best use of track and trace registration on site, pre-event, one-way systems, screening, catering protocols. I could go on. And just learning about that and helping each campaign perhaps leverage that data and that content across their own associations for informing them of what's out there in a more consolidated way. So, a lot of this probably people aren't aware of, and that's fine. But it's hard to just keep pumping out content while I think the associations have got responsibility and brilliantly just helping their memberships accordingly with cherry picking what's most appropriate for them to help the businesses going forward.
And I think what's important is the fact that even though people may not know it's going on, that it is going on, and there's a huge amount of collaboration. And I think, I guess that collaboration has got to have a positive benefit on the future of the industry going forward, right? I mean, it's unprecedented. It's never happened before. There's people who've never spoken to each other before, and organisations and who've all come together and are all sharing. That's got to have a benefit in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the wedding sector is such. I for one probably was guilty of not poo-pooing the wedding sector. That's not fair, but just feeling that maybe we were a different sector. We didn't really have much in common. We were a lot more strategic. Absolutely wrong. There are 14.7 billion contribution to the wider 84 billion, which is significant. They employ 250,000 people directly. 270,000 weddings take place each year. Average attendance 80 to 100 people. So one in it's what is it? Over a third of the population attend a wedding, at least one each year. Phenomenal, and it's the most important event of someone's life. And they, most importantly, share a huge raft of the same supply chain, from freelancers to venues to hotels to caterers to transport companies to props, florists, AV companies, talent that other sectors do. And I think we need to be a bit more aware of yes, there are 7 or 8 different sectors with different sort of leading organisers, whether clients or agencies or organisers. But below that, the vast majority of the supply chain is all shared. Whether you're doing, and I know that a lot of freelancers could do a wedding, an exhibition, a product launch, a festival, a fashion show, an outdoor festival, even work in theatre. I'll probably miss one, sporting activation, all within the same week or month. And that just demonstrates how mad it is that we're so siloed when we're actually all contributing to deliver amazing experiences, just in different ways, but effectively from the same skill set. So yeah, it's exciting, and I think if we look at that example going forward, the legacy of this could be some form of cross-industry representative body that now uses this momentum. I mean, we're a long way to go. Trust me, there's still problems and herding cats and egos and people not wanting to share, but it's less and less when people are now seeing the benefits of it. And I think there's a lot of legacy to unpick, a lot of history to unpick, and established setups that perhaps going forward could be quite exciting. But that's 2021 onwards.
Yeah, and I think what we've learned actually from listening to some of the other people talking in the industry is that actually going forward we do need to have more of a single voice to government and to people outside the industry, and hopefully it will lead to something more like that.
It's not just government as well, though. It's the public and it's the national media. We're very badly represented. We're either represented by music events, which is brilliant, and technical and lighting and flight cases, which is one sector, but that completely alienates or perhaps doesn't represent strategic thinking and creative content that large-scale brands come to us for, which also doesn't represent the very personal nature of attending a music or a festival, which has got a brand experience, or a wedding, or the amazing educational prowess that a congress and medical congresses which devise solutions to pandemics. They all have their own place. And the public and national media just don't get that power and that contribution to society. And finally, I will say the contribution to our well-being and our mental health. We've got a guy called Professor John Jury from the University of Sussex, who's on the Substage group, who's been advising us. And he's done a lot of research on how crowds behave in events, and also the impact of sharing experiences physically at event scenarios. And it's hugely powerful, the endorphins and the oxytocins that are released by sharing experiences, feeling part of a community at a live event, whether it's corporate or music or sport, and that memory that's embedded in that follow-up sharing and do you remember and the impact it has on changing behavior in a positive way is so underestimated and so unreported. It's very frustrating.
Absolutely. Obviously all this has been leading up to a campaign. That's how it started, and that's what the last 4 months have been about, and that's what they're raising money for. The campaign starts, well, I've seen some things on social media, as I'm sure other people have as well, but the main campaign launches on Monday. So what does that look like, and what can people expect to see?
Yeah, so we create experience, as I said before, is trying to leverage that cross-industry sector, one industry, one voice coalition representation. And I asked people what they wanted the key messages to be, and they gave them back the education, inspiration, and reassurance. And it's a positive campaign. It's not targeted at government at all. It's sort of balanced to all the very well thought and heartfelt and credible campaigns that were lobbying government financial support, which it's fair to say, it hasn't been massively forthcoming. There has been no big bailout support grants packages for the events industry, and that's up for a discussion for another time, whether that could happen still or was ever going to happen. That's not for me to say. But I just felt my spirit and soul and what I've dedicated over 25 odd years to the events industry is broadly about positivity and creating amazing experiences for all sorts of different audiences. And I wanted that to come across. So We Create Experiences is designed to reassure and educate and remind people and inspire them through the amazing content we've got. So we've got a social media sort of tease happening this week. There's a number of high-profile personalities that have offered their support and put pieces to camera, demonstrating what events and experiences mean to them. You know, CEOs of major charities like NSPCC and Macmillan's Cancer Support and Riding for the Disabled and Cancer Research and Spinal Injury Association and Rotary International. I'm sure I've forgotten one, apologies. Alongside sort of key personalities like David Coulthard, Claire Balding, Tim Peake, Angela Hartnett, Tom Kerridge, Daley Thompson, Andrew Strauss, Johnny Wilkinson, Will Greenwood, and there are other, David Gower, representing Lord Taverners, that was the other charity I forgot. And we've also got the Rugby League World Cup 2021, the biggest probably sporting event we're hosting globally next year. John Dutton, CEO of that's done a piece to camera for us as well. So, you know, that there's a nice Harvey Goldsmith. We shouldn't forget him, bless him, he was the first. You know, a leader and a pioneer in delivering amazing event experiences on the global stage from the music, and also chairman of several brand experience agencies as well. So we've got a pretty nice cross-section of high-profile personalities who have submitted little 30-second videos which have been across the One Industry on Voice channels, as you can see here over the last few days, with, I'm happy to say, like tens of thousands of views already, which is brilliant. And we've got more to come over the coming days, because I think only about half of them have been released. And that's culminating in a main video we put together, which has some of the overriding content, inspirational content, the data of some of the key stats, which Claire Balding is involved in as well, from a voiceover perspective, which is great. And that's being launched tomorrow at the Major Events Summit, tomorrow morning, which Oliver Dowden's also speaking at. I think Simon and I are one of the opening sessions. So that will be launched there, and then it will be posted across social media channels and our website, wecreateexperiences.co.uk, on Monday in conjunction with the launch. And obviously there's a lot of national and regional media being set up with a number of key spokespeople, from regional mayors to some of the people I've just mentioned, to venues and agencies in the different areas all across the UK, whether it's Northern Ireland or Wales or Scotland or North of England, Midlands, South, West, London, which we're trying to get as much regional and national coverage as well. And several people we're still in conversation with, which should hopefully support that. Yeah. And
there's two campaigns, isn't there? Because obviously the message is there's a consumer message, but there's also a business message as well.
This is the business message. We felt that the business community need to start. The call to action is that they need to start planning now for events to take place in 2021. We know the lead up time for sort of serious business events and others is 3 to 6 months, and for them to start deploying briefs and planning budgets, it needs to start in December, when the confidence begins to come up with regards to sort of more biosecurity protocols, guidelines published, tier 1 and tier 2 can take place, and certain capacity limitations. The vaccinations are potentially on their way. So now is the time to start thinking and planning, so that it doesn't wait another 3 or 6 months, which just puts more pain and severe pressure on our industry further down the line. So if we can start getting the planning and briefing and the confidence back now into January, then events could potentially start taking place in Q2 onwards, rather than later on. And then the consumer side, the consumer campaign is directed at through national media in January for the consumers, the buyers, the attendees of probably more sporting and music and theatre and cultural oriented events will happen in January, with another sort of layer of high profile people that are more relevant perhaps to them. Some of the same ones as well that will be used, so that we have two attacks, two plans.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing that all over social media from tomorrow onwards, I guess, if it's being launched at the Major Events Summit, right?
Yeah, well, the video, will go live on Monday with obviously the national and regional interviews, but you can see some snippets and some teasers of the videos all across the One Voice channels. This will go live presumably before the end of the week, so you can go and reference them and mention some of the people that are on them.
So obviously the majority of our audience is freelancers, and we all know how important freelancers are to the industry. How can they and how should they get involved in the campaign?
Yeah, I'd love them to. Obviously, they cross, as I said before, all the different sectors of the industry almost uniquely. And we did a big, we did 2 surveys actually just recently. We did a We Create Experience B2B survey to global brands, many, 50, 75, I think, of which we had, and asked them a series of questions. And, they are incredibly committed to delivering events, and I think 96%. I'm trying to hurriedly find the stats that I had in front of me, which are missing. Here we are. 96% of them said that events and experiences added value to their business. 93% said their absence has had a detrimental effect on staff engagement and internal comms. And that just shows the rationale behind our events industry as a whole. And then we did a larger One Industry One Voice survey, which I think a lot of the freelance sort of communities and agencies and across all the sectors, we had over 2,000 respondents or something in just a week. And some of the feedback from that, in particular reference to self-employed and freelancers, of which I think there was hundreds and hundreds of respondents, almost about a third, I think, with respondents. 48% say that they've experienced symptoms of depression, and I think 14% said that they had thoughts of suicidal or self-harm. That is just mind-blowing with regards to the impact, especially as a lot of freelancers and self-employed people have fallen obviously through any sort of level of financial support and grants for whatever reason, which obviously is not acceptable. And that's why they're probably one of the hardest, not the hardest hit, from an individual basis, without any sort of team perhaps to support them around or put them onto furlough because of their individual status from an employment perspective. But also from the fact that they probably, don't have a support network around them, and in conjunction with that, have not had the government's financial support. So they're worrying about their careers, they're worrying about their inability and the frustration of not being able to, when the government is launching new support packages, they just fall through the cracks. So, above as many as any of our community, they have been impacted the worst, forgotten probably the most from a government or financial support perspective, and our key, as I said right at the beginning, to the lifeblood and the delivery of the amazing experiences that we have across my agency and many others that represent and are supporting all the different sectors across the One Industry One Voice coalition. So how can they support? You all talk to each other. You're an amazing community, and I've engaged with a lot of different sort of Facebook communities through a number of the different people that I've been speaking to, who have thousands on their Facebook pages and others, and obviously yourself as well with Get Connected, which is brilliant. And I would just ask if, I'm sure you love your industry, you love what you do. We want you back. We want to get the industry kick-started, and we want a roadmap in conjunction with the government guidelines to do that. And the key people that can make that happen are ourselves, to encourage the people that actually buy us. Most importantly, probably a lot of the business leaders and the global brands to start planning to do so as quickly as possible. And that's the mission. So if you want to help get that message across, please go to the Insta, the LinkedIn, the Facebook, the Twitter, social media handles and accounts for One Industry, One Voice, which you can see the side of me, and share it amongst all your communities, build up the following, comment on it, like it. That would be as much as we could hope you to do, because obviously you've probably got other pressing issues at the moment. But if you're able to do that, that would be amazing, much appreciated. And then we're all in it together, which is the essence and the mandate of One Industry, One Voice. And as soon as we can start encouraging the corporate buyers and the global brands to start planning and budgeting and briefing, we can then start deploying all of that revenue as it starts coming through into 21 across the industry, through the organisers, the agencies, and so on that lead those accounts. The quicker that happens, the better, and that's our plan. So if you can help and be a small part of that or a large part of that, and share our social media teasers over the coming days, and then obviously on the 7th, we're asking also people to use the hashtag We Create Experiences on the 7th to just post that one video or that one image of the event, potentially business event, charity event, fashion show, press launch, exhibition that they've missed organising and being part of this year. Post it with the hashtag We Create Experiences on the linking, obviously, in One Industry, One Voice on the social accounts, and just sort of demonstrating that power of all the different types of events that we're missing organising. We can't wait to organise again into 2021. that would be the two things that I'd ask you to do this week and on the 7th, next Monday.
Brilliant. So get involved.
Thank you.
So, I mean, just want to finish by saying thank you for everything that you and everyone else who's involved in the One Industry One Voice campaign has done over the last 4 months and are going to continue doing, no doubt. And thanks very much for being with us today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate the opportunity, and hope to see you all soon in 2021 at an event.
Event freelancers, welcome to your new community, connecting you to your next project. Get connected. Sign up now. It's free.